Everyone, to our Commissioner Status Update meeting. It is April 11th, 2023. The time is 10 a.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. In attendance are Commissioners Brooks, Matari, and Duncan. The only change to the agenda is we're just going to try to handle items 1 and 7 at the same time. So other than that, any other changes?
Nope.
Okay. Then we'll go ahead and get started. Item 1 is Northern Lakes Fire Department MOA with the airport for fire station use. And we have Mr. Drexel here to represent Northern Lakes. And we have our interim airport director, Phil Cummings, as well. Phil, do you want to just lead us through this real quick, or what do you want to do?
Yes, Commissioners, North Lakes has a new station being constructed, and they came to me a little while ago and asked about the possibility of temporarily housing their new crew in the airport fire station, our facility. They won't have their building finished, I believe, until October. And I thought it was a good opportunity for us to partner with our mutual aid partner for the airport operations manual. They are our closest fire support. We worked very close with them over the years. And I think our facility is not manned 24 hours. Mm-hmm. We have more than enough room to accommodate what their temporary needs would be. So Pat wrote this up, submitted the request, and we would like to get some feedback from the commissioners and move on. We can move into I believe we need an MOA for this, and I brought some backup back here if you hadn't noticed. We'd just like to have some discussion with the commissioners and address any concerns. Of course, it'll go to county legal. Mm-hmm. We've discussed what they would like to do is man the station 24 hours a day, be 3 shifts. This is a new crew that's come in, and we mixed with some of their senior personnel. Yep. But they want to man it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, until I believe like the end of October, first part of November. And I think it would be a good thing for us to accommodate that.
All right. Had we seen Chief Riley's outline that you have right there?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Just making sure it wasn't something new. So questions?
No.
Comments? Okay.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
My only question is just what happens if they're on a call and then we have an issue at the airport, and just how that would work, those kind of details.
Okay, if our 139 compliance for fire coverage at the airport does require what they call a 48-hour PPR, or prior permission request. As far as emergencies, we cover that, can cover it during the day with our standard personnel. Mm-hmm. So really what they would do is enhance the safety of the airport, at least for the next 7 months, having a qualified shift there 24 hours a day.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I think it's a good idea. I was just asking the logistics sometimes, if Northern Lakes goes out on a call, we would have our people still prepared to handle something at the airport.
Yes.
If there were no Northern Lakes personnel around.
But usually in the past, and I see this working the same way, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, if they get into a big situation off airport, mm-hmm. and usually they move their resources around just within the district themselves so they're not thin in one area. And as Pat and I talked about some different things that we need to work into the MOU, that would be one of their places that they would shift crews around. Yeah. If they get into something that's, they get into a 3-alarm or something, God forbid, someplace, that the coverage would still be available for the airport.
Okay.
All right. I guess the only thing I would ask probably is that Northern Lakes present us with a memorandum of agreement, since you have more specific needs than I think we do at this point. And so if you could get that done, then we can put it on a business meeting and get it signed.
We can do that, Commissioner. We actually have that slated as an agenda item for our committee board meeting on Thursday. We have that discussion with our board.
Okay,
And then also the draft.
thank you very much. All right, anything further on that?
Nope.
Okay. All right, the second item we'll handle is Coeur d'Alene Skeet Club next steps. And let's see, on Monday, April 3rd, the three of us received an email talking about House Bill 304 is passed into law, so that means that Idaho Fish and Game has been given funds and the direction to enter into negotiations with the county to purchase between 40 and 60 acres to preserve the skeet and trap shooting range. So there's that. I would like to work on deed restrictions. So I just wanted to find out how everybody felt about that.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's to keep it a skeet and trap club.
Yeah, I was thinking they would have to, and obviously this has to go by legal, but just some of the things that came to my mind is, they would need to give a concession lease for about 25 years or more, clean up at the end of the lease. County has first right of refusal to buy back the property and keep their current tenants. So just items like that I can run by legal and see what they feel about.
Hear that? What?
I'd just like to run those by legal, and if you
Oh,
guys
yes,
have any
absolutely.
other restrictions, let me know.
Yeah, the only other thing that I just kind of wonder about is just what the FAA would want and how much they'd be willing to cooperate with those kinds of things. But I don't know why they wouldn't.
Well, and the property's been released, so they really shouldn't have any regulations other than fair market value,
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
so.
Then it shouldn't be a
anything else?
problem.
No, it shouldn't.
Yeah, this property was actually part of the original 710 acres of the airport. So technically, it was purchased with local money and not with the ADAP funds or AIP funds, which kind of came into place after World War II. So they still have to approve it. However, the strings are a little bit less, so
Well,
it'll be in good shape.
all the better.
Yes. All right, and I'm still waiting for our outside counsel to get back with us from the other questions we had. So I plan on reaching out by the end of the week if I have not heard from that lawyer. So, okay, I have direction, and I will go ahead and meet with legal and talk about deed restrictions. So did you have any other deed restrictions or comments or thoughts?
No, I think first right of refusal to purchase, and then just given the Skeet and Trap Club, as long a lease as possible, I think,
Okay.
is prudent.
Okay. All right. Item 2, future coroner project and impact fees. Dr. Duke, would you join us at a table? Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, thanks, Phil.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Alrighty. If I may just give a brief presentation of my understanding of the, office and its needs right now. I've had a significant opportunity to review the needs of the office since taking that position in January, and have a fresh look at it perhaps. And what I've noticed is that, from my impression, that although we have needs to be able to meet a daily occasional death that occurs in the county, and we've got agreements to be able to handle something that's quite substantial with the Forest Service, cooling facility that's there. But where I think there's a woeful need actually is if the county encumbered or had the bad fortune of having a medium-sized traumatic event that occurred in the county. We've been very fortunate that that hasn't occurred. But if something like that were to occur, like a bus crash or, God forbid, a boat going down, et cetera, where there are scores to hundreds of people, and I understand people don't like to talk about death, so I'm in a tough position here because no one likes to think about it, but I've been cast in that position of being responsible for something like that were to occur. And right now we're very dependent upon the funeral homes and transportation, and in fact, a couple of the funeral homes have stepped out of that relationship in the last year because it was overtaxing on them. And right now we have agreements with Spokane so that they can handle up to 5 deaths that would occur in our county, but we're very dependent upon the cooling that occur in current funeral homes. And what I'd like to be able to do is just discuss the possibility of impact fees, perhaps, to be able to expand the needs of the county so that we're not dependent upon funeral homes, because we could be very rapidly overwhelmed if something happened. And so that was the idea of the discussion today.
What would you consider to be an appropriate investment? I mean, I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, what we've done is, if there, you know, I hate to bring this topic up, but when people pass away, bodies start deteriorating real rapidly, and I think that it would be best for us to be in a position where we could have some type of a refrigerant room that could hold 80 people or 100 people. Okay. And so we've gotten architectural plans to look at that facility that's nearby our current office right now. And just in peripheral overview, they thought it would cost $300,000. I'm not sure that we need everything. I haven't scrutinized every aspect of that, but we could be in a real strong position somewhere in that neighborhood, certainly, and maybe less.
What is the temperature that you need?
I usually somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 degrees, 37, right in that neighborhood, Fahrenheit.
I have scrutinized it, and I think we can cut, you know, at least over 150,000 off of that. Do you need a bathroom?
Well, the reason for that, and that's a really good question, that was actually a laid add-on, is that if we're in that position, 2 different aspects of it. With the bathroom comes a shower. And what happens is that if we have to process 80 to 100 bodies, and that takes a lot of time, a lot of pictures with each person. You know, the whole processing is not something that you do in a second, put people in a bag and go. There have to be oftentimes blood draws, et cetera. So if the staff is going to be out there for hours, and then also to the idea of the shower, that is significant. But if say, for example, if there are residuals or there's a toxic spill or et cetera, if that's part of it, so that the staff maybe got some of the chemicals on them, et cetera, they'd have ready access to a shower.
Right. Do you already have a shower in your current facility?
We do in our current facility, yes.
Okay. I just think it's so close that if we can save that kind of money.
No, I could see where that would be a distinct possibility for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess right now, in my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, you just kind of wanted to see the appetite to look at impact fees for this project.
Mm-hmm.
I think this project, so I think it's 2 separate issues here. Number 1, do we want to entertain the project? Number 2, how do we pay for it? So I would be fine either way. I think impact fees complicates it, and since it's such a low price project considering the other projects in front of us,
Right.
that I probably be rather use fund balance should we decide to go ahead with this project, and put it in your budget process, right?
Okay.
But I don't know, how do you feel about that?
I would rather use impact fees. We're going to be relying pretty heavily on fund balance with this proposed justice building.
I'm kind of curious about the project a little bit.
Good.
I'm kind of curious about the project.
Okay.
how do other communities handle it when they have a significant event? Like a tornado or a hurricane where they have a lot of bodies? What do they do?
You know, that's, I'm not familiar because I haven't gone into that kind of a scenario. In essence, I would imagine they do something similar that we have in place. When you're talking hundreds to thousands of people, that's where we would use the Forest Service building, which can be lowered in those kind of scenarios. I'm sure that they'll bring in a lot of federal people, and those funds are going to come back to the county.
Yeah.
If the federal money needs to come in or state money needs to come in, oftentimes, we end up paying in a more retrospective way.
Because I commend the contingency planning, and I've dealt with this a lot myself just throughout my career, but the question that I always ask when it comes down to this, because everything, costs money, is what is the likelihood of such an event? Because that has to play a role. Have we had it happen here 2-3 times where we can say, we need this, or is this because it might happen and therefore it's good to have this facility?
And that's a great question. Honestly, the Kootenai County, I've had a chance to attend some coroner conferences in Boise, and I've been able to meet all of the coroners in northern Idaho. We are for sure the most funded of all of the counties, and yet not. It's traditional throughout the state to be inadequately funded, because I even asked the former head of Ada County, what did it take for you guys to get adequate funding? And they said a very important person's son died and was on the side of the road for 4 hours, and finally it woke up everybody that they needed to change it down there. So but what happens is if a scenario like that occurred, we've got a lot of tour buses that are coming throughout the summer. And if there was a bus crash anywhere pretty much from the Canadian border, because no one north of us can handle anything of any significance either, clear down to Moscow or anywhere on the 90, I think we've been very, very fortunate that something like that hasn't occurred. No, they don't occur on a regular basis, but if they did, or also too, another important scenario is if somebody famous passed away, the paparazzi are very aggressive, and we don't have any facility for really being able to protect from an onslaught of publicity, which a garage facility would do, which would allow us to be able to keep drones out, keep the public out, so we could do it in a controlled and careful manner rather than having that kind of publicity. So I get your point, but I also think that with the way that the county is growing, I think we've been very, very fortunate that nothing has happened, but I don't think that it's wise for the county to retrospectively say, since it hasn't happened in the past, let's not prepare for it in the future.
Well,
that's my position.
I understand, and that's the point of contingency planning, but there still has to be some sort of a probability analysis, in essence,
I can add to the probability scenario. We used to have 3 funeral homes work with us in town. Now we have 1, and they're all about 90% capacity. So even if you had 6 people, we may not be able to do that. So I think this is worth pursuing, whether we do it this year, next year, whatever, only because we cannot rely on funeral homes anymore. Now, if there was another funeral home to start up, and that would be great, but already the refrigeration in Kootenai County is near max.
Well, and I'm not disagreeing that there may not be a need, but it just makes me wonder if there's not a bigger picture here. At what point do we have a coroner that's fully functioning autonomously in this community? How big does this community need to be until the coroner is actually like the Spokane County coroner? Because I think we rely on them right now.
We sure do.
And that's all. If this is a discussion today, then why not look at all of these pieces, and then we can decide, well, maybe we just want to carve out for what you're asking.
When you're talking about a significant event, what are the numbers?
Well, our agreement with Spokane is anything above 5. I don't know if you remember when 2 airplanes, private airplanes, that was, that was, I think, 9 people, and that exceeded our capacity, 2 small planes. And what happens is there's only, with the local funeral homes that 90% capacity in their refrigeration. And we toured those facilities. I was actually very surprised at the lack of cooling that's available in the county. If you have one that isn't able to get into a cooling scenario, then it turns bad real fast. I mean,
Yeah.
these things are very, very
How many
smelly and difficult.
body coolers do we have now?
What's that?
How many body coolers do we have now?
None.
The county? None. We are 100% dependent upon,
Well, they were being kept in a private airport hangar and then they were sold. So, yeah.
No.
Anyway,
and-
yes, we have no coolers right now. We do have a trailer that
right,
can
we
hold
have a
up,
trailer, but we don't have 220 to plug it in.
yes, which this building actually does have. So, we can also do this in stages, you know, and each year have a certain amount of money to build this project up. Because I'm less concerned, I mean, because we have the Forest Service, we have refrigerated trucks that we already have MOUs for. But my thing is long-term, the refrigeration, I mean, you get a heat wave and you can have 16 people die in 1 week because we don't have air conditioning here and you have, you know, an elderly population. So I think it's just something to look into as far as, unless the private sector would come and be able to help us with this.
Yeah, the two funeral homes that we did, we traditionally have had a very good relationship with the funeral homes, and I think we still do generally. It's just that they had to pull out of the rotational system because we were overtaxing 2 of the 3. So right now, we're dependent upon one, and I'm not sure that it's wise for a county to be dependent upon a funeral home for any traumatic thing that occurs. I think if we had one traumatic event occur, one bus, I think we'd all regret that we were dependent upon one funeral home. And it just scares me because I'm the one that's been charged with the responsibility, so that's why I feel a little bit stronger
Right.
about this, of course.
But we don't have to build it out for 80 bodies because we have the trailer. The trailer can be parked inside, plugged in, and we can maybe have, you know, 3 body coolers to start that hold, you know, 7 people or something. So there's a whole bunch of ways to do this, but he can't go forward unless we decide that we're going to entertain this idea or not.
Well, I'm open to entertaining the idea, but with impact fees.
Okay.
Because that's part of the growth of the county and,
Yep.
and its infrastructure, which qualifies for that.
Definitely infrastructure.
Okay. Then it sounds like you have direction to go work with our consultant and get what you need going in that direction.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
All right. Alternate office space for our prosecuting attorney's office.
Good morning. Before I begin, I just wanted to update the commissioners that on paper, my office is fully staffed, with the exception of a investigator position that we kind of share or reimbursed for with the Attorney General's office. But legal assistants and attorneys were fully staffed. However, before I get too deep into this conversation, I do wish to advise the commissioners that with attorneys and legal assistants, we keep a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 attorneys for every legal assistant. Because we were so understaffed for so long, we were getting by without all of the legal assistance that we require. So what I'm trying to say is, later this month, one of our attorneys starts, and then in July, 3 other attorneys start, and we are short legal assistants. We are short 2 legal assistants. My intention, as early as next week, will be to ask for one of those legal assistants now, paid for by unspent wages, and then I'm going to ask for one legal assistant in October And that's just to meet current staffing levels. If I ask for more attorneys, I'll of course have to ask for more legal assistants. The reason why I would need one now and one in October is because with the 3 attorneys starting in July, they wouldn't be sworn in till October. They wouldn't need a legal assistant till October. So that's why I can wait till October for one of the 2. But our current staffing levels, we would need 1. The reason why I bring that up is I'm about to hand out a map, and those numbers are represented on the map. If I can approach.
This is not a courtroom.
Thank you.
We've had that conversation before. So this is the prosecutor's office, the second floor of the courthouse. And we've bursted at the seams. We're sardines in a can. And just so the commissioners can see, the 2 offices that are highlighted in pink, those aren't even offices. Those are what used to be closets. They don't have windows. We have been creative and put storage in places where storage shouldn't be, just so we can put attorneys in those, what we call offices now. The areas that are highlighted in yellow is what I want to bring everybody's attention to. On the far left, right next to Nancy Lee's office, that is not an office. That is an entryway. It's just a void. We used to keep toys and a couch and a TV there for children victims to kind of put them at ease with, being involved in the system. But we did away with that a long time ago, and we put 2 desks there. So these 2 legal assistants that we are short, that's where they will be. We are going to pack 2 legal assistants into a corner that's not even an office. Moving to the right, you'll see the 3 X's that have been circled. That's also not an office. That area is what we used to call the vault, coupled with where you see Matt and Taryn. That's where we used to have our filing systems. But because my office went to an electronic paperless system, we did away with the filing cabinets, and we stuffed 2 attorneys in there. However, there's a little more room. We're going to end up stuffing the intern and 3 attorneys in that vault. So we're basically going to have 6 people in what used to be a storage room. On the far right, on the bottom, you'll see the office with Cammie and Mariah. That's one office. That's where my office used to be before I took over the office. We already have 2 people in that office, and we're going to stick a 3rd in there, another attorney. And so this is really kind of dire. I talked to Commissioner Matari a few weeks ago. We extended a job offer to an attorney in Montana that we wanted to hire with a few years of experience, and he turned us down because when he found out he wouldn't have his own office space, he declined the offer. Now, truth be told, we more or less dodged the bullet with that. I would agree that anybody who's going to turn down a job, an opportunity to work in Kootenai County, making what we now pay over office space, that might not have been an attorney that we wanted anyway. So we might have dodged the bullet. However, it's indicative of it. We do have a problem. These are doctors. We're lawyers. Not everybody's entitled to an office. Not everybody's entitled to a window. Not everybody's entitled to not office share. However, I do think that if we're going to attract and retain the professional employees that we want, that this is a problem we have to address. I don't have a lot of solutions right now. I'm proposing that we have a facilities meeting. There are some ideas I'd like to talk about today, but they would involve, discussing things with departments that aren't represented today. But we have a problem. I'd like to look off campus. The public defender's office is already off campus.
This would be for 18 months.
Well, hopefully, you're right. If the new building is built, I've been told that my office will have space there. But the next 18 months, 24 months, what's going to happen in that time? I mean, this isn't something that can wait 18 months. So I'm hoping that whatever we come up with soon is a temporary solution. You're right. However, I've heard discussions that one way to save money is to not build the top floor of the county building, and that would be my office. And so I don't know what's in store for the future. I don't know what options are seriously being entertained. but I've been told that the building might cost a little more than we thought, more than we want. At least one of the options is to not build the building as high. That might mean that this problem, this solution we come up with might not be temporary, might be permanent. So I'd like to discuss that as well someday.
That, in my estimation, it's not on the table. We are building that floor for you. However, if some weird thing happened, AMP would be vacating, so you would have that entire office area.
AMP would be vacating what?
Vacating their floor.
Downstairs.
Their downstairs. So that would open up that space, and if we can move other people around or whatever. So it's not
When would they be vacating?
in 18 to 24 months. That's only if we didn't build that floor for you.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the solutions I wanted to talk about is, do we have to wait 18 months for my office to move downstairs? I would agree that downstairs would be a very ideal office space for my office to assume control over. The second page I gave is the annex. Several of my employees are already in the annex.
Yeah.
That is not a conducive environment for us to be in. We've made a sacrifice to do that. Those are employees that we would like to have back with us, but we're basically full there. If we could have the downstairs portion of the county building, we would be able to move them back and have office space for everybody else. But is there a way we could talk about maybe us not waiting to have downstairs? Keith Hutchison is here. He's advised me that under certain circumstances, he'd be willing to move to the annex sooner than later.
I don't think there's enough room in the annex, though, so we would have to displace.
Well, there would be enough room if we displaced other departments.
Right.
And I think that's where you were going.
Yeah.
But I don't think my office can wait 18 months to do something.
Sure.
We're going to have people leave. We're going to have people reject offers. Again, I think we're at staffing levels where I'd like to ask for more attorneys. With more attorneys comes more legal assistance, and that's just going to compound the issue. I don't want to suffer in our current caseloads just because of office space. So.
Well, there's a couple of things here. One, although we've only briefly touched on this, is what happens to the Kootenai Electric Building and how that creates a void if the sheriff's office relocates there, and how that relieves some stuff. I mean, the only other option, if it's that immediate, is to look at space, but I'm not even sure that that's something that we want to do, that we could get on such a short-term basis, and just putting a few people into some little offices for $500 a month or something. I don't know if that's even
I don't think we can find $500 a month, but
I mean,
I know that Keith Hutchison advised me that if and when the sheriff moves out of their current office, he might be able to move into the sheriff's office.
well, and if community development moves as well, then that would be a huge chunk on this floor in this building too. So, but again, you're talking now 9 months, right? And I would say even 10 or 11 months. So I think that we can schedule, next week, I was planning on having that discussion, making a decision on what was going to happen with Kootenai North and then the vacated sheriff's office if we went in that direction. So,
I definitely hope we have that conversation. I would propose, if the board would like to look at this, is to have the prosecutor look and see what some other options might be outside that are short-term, temporary.
and I would say work with AMP, because if it's easier to move entire AMP department than half of your staff or a quarter of your staff, you're already in like 3 or 4 buildings as it is. So now you're talking adding another building, so your people are just going to be more separated. So that would, if AMP is willing to look at that, then, partner with them.
I haven't talked to her about this, and I don't know the answer to my first question is, but does the county know how many offices the public defender's office has in their off-campus building?
I don't know the actual number.
Because that's already money the county's spending. I'd be up to entertaining the idea of us just switching offices with them. If they have more office space than we have, they're short attorneys.
The judges do not want them in the courthouse. I'll tell you that right now.
Judges
Plus-
do not want the public defenders?
That is correct. Plus, public defense is not going to be Kootenai County's issue October 1st of 2024. So to disrupt them for that amount of time, I don't see that as a viable option right now. So, but yeah, let's continue the conversation. We can have it at 10 a.m. every Tuesday
Okay.
until we get something going forward.
Again, I don't want to represent anything on behalf of Keith, but I've been told that if GIS, community development, and the district court left the annex, he would very easily be able to move over to the annex. But I don't have a solution as to where all those other departments would go.
Right. This is why I say the building is 5 years overdue. So I appreciate your challenge, because we have a lot of departments with the same challenge. And so we're moving at the speed of government, and hopefully in 18 months we'll have something to move into. But, well, sooner than that, actually, if the proposed moves for Kootenai North happen.
Okay.
So,
Well, thank you for the commissioner's time.
yeah. But let's get with Keith, find out if there's anything real local here, vacant office building or something to that effect. That would be kind of a smooth transition for 18 months or 2 years, and definitely willing to look at that. So, thanks, Stan.
Thank you.
All right. We have KCSO Pay Comparison. Did you want to switch that with jail population, or do you have a preference which one you want to handle first?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Which one would you like for us to go?
If it doesn't matter, you pick.
All right, let's go in order
Okay.
of the agenda. Commissioners, members of the public, Robert Norris, Sheriff. The Kootenai County Sheriff's Office is facing many threats and challenges in 2023 and beyond. We have seen municipalities weaponize law enforcement agencies in the last several years, and an emerging criminal threat is present here in Kootenai County. Protecting your rights and protecting this community will always be a priority with the Sheriff's Office. However, our model for funding and your model for ensuring that these priorities are sustained cannot continue. The depth of our organization is being impacted by the loss of employees in the first 5 years of employment. The Sheriff's Office has deficiencies in skill set positions and equipment that is impacting public safety as we speak. Kootenai County is the third largest Sheriff's Office in Idaho and will likely be the second in the not so distant future. It is imperative that we prepare this office for the threats and the problems we face now and in the future. Under Sheriff Brett Nelson would like to take you through a presentation, and I'll hand it over to Brett.
Good morning, Commissioners. Currently, as we see it today, we have 10 vacancies in our patrol staffing, which not only affects our daily minimum staffing for patrol, but also curtails our ability to fully serve the constituents of the county. Since last year, at the same time, that's up from 3. In that same period of time, the Coeur d'Alene Police Department last year, this time, had 15 openings. As of this morning, they have none. Speaking to their administration just this morning, they directly relate their ability to fill those 15 vacancies over the past year due to the attraction of a $10,000 signing bonus, but more importantly, the credit to the new contract that they received when the members of the county and specifically the Sheriff's Department received a pay raise last year. In addition to that, the city received quite a bump right after us. With the information that I submitted to you, an analysis was done of our pay for our deputy sheriffs compared to that of a Coeur d'Alene police officer, In the first year, there's 11% disparity between the two pay grades or pay, which surmises over their 6-year pay period. Ours is far longer than that. But at the end of that 6-year pay period plan or matrix that the city have, that disparity grows to 22% or over $20,000 a year. For the business model within law enforcement, we set the hook, if you use an efficient analogy, we set the hook within the employee within the first 3 to 5 years to hopefully retain them for a lengthy period of time, if not their entire employment period. Using those numbers with a base salary and knowing that as of January, per the CDA regional realtors, our base median home price was approximately $525,000. That's almost equivalent to the $526,000 in 2022. A deputy at the end of that 6-year period with that $20,000 disparity could afford a home somewhere in the range of $300,000, nearly $200,000 below the median home price. We're asking for consideration from the board to close and working that disparity between ourselves and the city to stay competitive, not only within our local county, but within the Northwest. As Sheriff Norris has asked, and consideration on behalf of the commission last year for our jail staffing and also our 911 staff, to stay within 3 to 5% of the local market. By doing that, we ask that you also consider moving towards a 5-year matrix to stay competitive, not only with the city of Coeur d'Alene, but also within the state. The Ada County Sheriff's Office has a 5-year pay matrix. Currently, we have employees, as you know, that are 2 years behind in their pay matrix. As given, they're being paid less than they should be based on the total time of tenure with the Sheriff's Office. Being an oral agreement between the county and its employees, that's caused quite a bit of traction within our employees, understanding that they're not being paid for what their tenure reflects. I'd ask that you would consider instructing the auditor's office to run some numbers for consideration of us, one, staying within the 5% of the Coeur d'Alene Police Department, and also looking to move towards a 5-year pay matrix for the sheriff's deputies to stay competitive.
Submitted with your packet is a letter from Matt Clifford, who's the sheriff in Ada County. Many times when we have an issue, we reach out to other agencies of similar size to see what they have done to resolve their problems. And Sheriff Clifford said, you know, we were experiencing the same thing that you were. Boise Police was making considerably much more money than an Ada County deputy sheriff. They shortened the matrix and they went from a 24% decrease of 24% vacancy rate to today, over 200 sworn deputies, they have 0. But they also have a 5-year matrix, just like their neighboring Boise Police Department. So the time has come. The 15-year matrix and a 9-year matrix may have served this county well at one time, but this is a different marketplace today. This is a different type of employee today, and I believe it's time for us to consider a 5-year matrix also to be competitive.
Okay. Bill, thoughts?
I have read through the material and I agree completely. And the sooner we do it, the better off we're gonna be. And the longer we wait, the worse it's gonna get.
Bruce?
I'm just curious, how many applicants the sheriff's office gets? Do you get one deputy who's graduated post-training for patrol? What's that ratio?
So how many applications per?
In order to get one deputy to get through post-training, how many applications does the sheriff's office have to get?
We'd like to see 100.
Yeah, but what do you,
See 100.
what are you doing now? Like for every one, what do you get? 200, 300 applications?
So maybe Marcia's or HR is not here. However, maybe Sylvia, do you have an idea of what that number is?
Yeah. And the reason I ask is just because, you know, there's metrics with organizations hiring and paying and so forth. And we're spending a lot of money recruiting, advertising, taking in applications.
School.
Well, the school, you've also got just getting, you know, passing the, all the tests necessary before you'll even put them into post-training. And it just, I have to wonder if we're not being, you know, perhaps a little bit, I guess the saying is penny wise and pound foolish in that sense. I do think that after we get a deputy and we lose them, in the 3 to 5 year mark, it's a real loss. It's a real loss. So I,
Record, Mr. Commissioner, the city of Coeur d'Alene has have promoted 5 sergeants. All of them were prior Kootenai County deputy sheriffs.
I would be figuring out how to get your deputies if I worked at the city. Absolutely, it would save a lot of money. Now, this number of 24% vacancy, that's what they told you down in Ada, you know, and then,
Went to a 5-year matrix to match their surrounding agencies.
yeah.
How many deputies have we lost to Coeur d'Alene in the last 6 months?
Well, we've had several that have applied, but if you'd like to go into executive session, we could probably talk to you about those.
Okay, but none have actually gotten hired by CDA.
But we've
in
had
6
2
months.
that left to Washington agencies
Okay.
for considerably more money.
All right,
I think we should do the budget impact on this and look at it, because it's clear that our deputies are falling behind every year compared to other agencies.
not compared to our market, though. The market that was chosen and agreed upon.
Well, yeah, but I don't think that's how people look at it. And having worked in a company and in the early part of my career, looking to make a few extra dollars every opportunity I could, you will jump ship faster. The first 6 years of my career, I probably had 3 to 4 different positions, increasing my pay between $5,000 and $10,000 every time. And the more you get paid, the more likely you are to continue to get a higher salary. So I kind of disagree with that. If the deputies are looking at Coeur d'Alene or Spokane as other options versus just a study market.
I also want to talk about internal things, too, that keep people in departments, not just money, because people leave for other reasons than money. As a matter of fact, money's like the third.
And if I may speak to that, an internal analysis was done of our last 22 employees that left within the last 5 years. 17 of them last 22 employees to leave the organization, 17 of those left within 5 years. Granted, many or several of them left totally the profession, but they left the organization. 9 of our last employees to leave the organization recently cited the financial impact of the pay, not for any other reason other than that.
So 9 of the last 11 exit interviews alluded to pay. So,
I'd like to see,
so what?
I'd like to see a study on that, some actual hard numbers.
Right.
Because I think the hard numbers will dictate what we need to do.
And this is a different market today in 2023. We had a major employer in Kootenai County address this board last year, and this is what he does for a living. And that was Mr. Rick Rasmussen, where pay and benefits now in this particular workforce is front and center.
Okay, so I guess auditor's office will do some calculations on what that would mean going forward, and you would then come back to the board, and then we would say if it could be put in the budget. Is that how you see this going, Brandon?
Yeah, I can do that. I'd like to just present it in May at the same time I present all the other budget calculations.
Okay,
I think it's gonna take me that long to get it done. So I'll just have the sheriff's office send me the stuff and I'll work on it, and it will be presented on May 31st
Okay.
with the rest of the budget analysis.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're ready to go to item 5, jail population, staffing, overtime budget.
Yes, commissioners, as you know, our population in the jail is up over 100 inmates, about 125 inmates than it was last year. So we are likely going to go over our overtime calculations for last year. And obviously, there are many, many reasons for that. Many of them have to do with transportation, medical cost, the food cost, the security cost. of providing security for these inmates. This is a different jail than it was a couple of years ago. We're having fights on a frequent basis on inmate. We need to break those internal structures that inmates create. And we need to put those pod bosses or shot callers in separate housing so they don't develop these types of structures inside these pods. And this is one of the reasons why we're getting a lot of more internal inmate on inmate conflicts. But it costs deputies, it costs money to do that. And we're going to have to be in those pods more often than what we were at one time. So we're going to go over our projected overtime budget.
Okay.
I'm just curious, when you do your projections, do you include what you estimate to be your jail population at that time?
Yeah, but how generally we look at the last 3 years, and if Brandy, if you could help, when we do this analysis of how much overtime we used, and then we look back at, so we've asked for X amount of dollars because of what we've used in the past several years, but in many times we are not granted that amount of money.
Yes.
Brandy, is that?
Yes, I forget the exact numbers, but over the last 3 to 5 years, the board has funded less than you requested.
And in the analysis showed that approximately dating back to 2018, we've asked for approximately $615,000 in overtime for jail specific, or $685,000 the years following, and we've been given roughly a third of that and been told that we would be made whole at the end of the year. Obviously,
And you have been.
What's that?
And you have been made.
And we have been.
Yep.
Obviously, projecting out and looking at the numbers going forward, with our population being ever increasing, our transportation, with our understaffed and overcrowded, naturally our ability to maintain a budgeted overtime
So-
balance.
What it is, what the term made whole, that means is their open position savings have covered their overtime overuse. This year, I don't think that will happen. There's not enough open position savings to cover the amount that they're going to spend over. Does that make sense?
Sure. Can we see analysis on how much overtime is due to minimum staffing and how much overtime is due to other reasons?
Yeah, I'm just curious, is the driver for your overtime, is it the jail population?
Jail population, court appearances.
So if you had only 300 inmates, we wouldn't be having a discussion about overtime necessarily.
Correct. And last year we had about 400 at this time.
And now we're at
500.
Now we're over at 500. So
Or 528.
these are environmental factors that are leading to this, in essence. Okay.
Many dynamics, a lot more court appearances than they had the previous year. The state not taking the inmates, and they're not projected to take them for several years.
And I'm having a meeting on Monday with courts and talk about trying to get these people out. So.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. And item 6, Community Action Partnership Public Official Designee. Bill, you received an email. Had you had experience with this person before?
Who is it?
This is Community Action Partnership. You received an email asking.
Who's the person?
Corey Smith?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so you want to tell us what this is about?
He's a young attorney. I mean, there comes a point where everybody's a young attorney, or a young anything, as you get older. But he's in the prime of his attorney life, and he's very, very careful about his law, and I've been nothing but impressed with him, unlike some attorneys in town.
So do you know, I have never heard of us being involved in appointing these people, so do you know where that started?
I do not.
Okay, so we're being asked to reappoint this person. I did get a copy of the Board of Directors, and it talks about there's 2 representatives for Kootenai. The position is private sector representative is what they're designated at. both this Robert and Corey. So I don't know where to go from here because we have nothing. We have nothing that says we are the ones who appoint these people. So I'm not sure where to go from here.
Well, I'm not really excited about adding more workload to the board. You know, I think we're pretty stretched as it is. And if is this a private entity?
Yeah, I think it's a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
So,
don't think it takes a lot of maintenance once we appoint somebody to it.
well, no, because I've never heard of them before. So I know in the last almost 4.5 years
Yeah.
that we've done nothing with
Not
this
a lot of
group.
maintenance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are they
So-
doing for the county?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'd like to have him come to a status update and tell us what they do for the county.
See,
I'm open to that if they just want to come before us and talk.
Yeah.
yep. If you would reach out and see if he can come, if he can't come, it's always Tuesday at 10. So,
I will see if I can do that. I'll do
Okay.
that today.
all right, thank you very much. And public comment. Okay, hearing none, 10:55, meeting adjourned.